Tale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining today for this session on journaling. We'll broadly be discussing three things in today's seminar. What is journaling? Why journaling is helpful? And how journaling and spiritual growth can go together. So I will use a PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint will largely act like basically like a whiteboard, an aid for this talk. So let's first begin. What is journaling? Now, writing is something which we all learn in school, and we mostly do for functional purposes. We may write a list, we may write and send messages to people. And in that sense, we are familiar with writing as a functional activity. And we also think of, if we think of writing at multiple levels, writing as a functional activity is something we do throughout our day. And we don't even think twice about it. That means nobody thinks when they're making a list, oh, can I write down and make a list? No, we do it. So writing as a functional activity is something we all do. And then we can talk about writing as an artistic or a creative activity. That is what authors do. And some of us may have aspiration for that, but we may feel, maybe I don't have that much mastery over language. Maybe I'm not creative enough. Maybe people will not be interested in what I'm reading. And maybe because of that, we never develop as a creative writer. And we think, oh, that is not for me. So we often think of writing primarily in these two terms: writing as a functional activity and writing as an artistic creative activity. And the first we do nonchalantly, and the second we may think it's forbidden for us, or it's inaccessible for us, too difficult for us. But in between these two, writing as a functional activity and writing as an artistic activity, in between is writing as an introspective activity. Introspection. Spec is like associated with the spectacles, or we have spectators, those who watch. Spectacles, the thing which helps us see. So intra is inner. Introspection means looking within. So writing as an introspective activity is the essence of journaling. Journaling means that we write for ourselves. So functional activity means we write to get things done practically, or tell others to get things done. Writing as a creative activity is we communicate our thoughts, our ideas, our inspirations to others, to the world. But in between is writing as a artistic activity. Sorry, writing as an introspective activity. And that is what we will be discussing in journaling. Now we can understand the need for the first, writing as a functional activity. Yeah, we need to make lists, we need to communicate with people. So that's easy to understand. Then what is the need for writing as a artistic activity? Well, for some people, they earn their living that way. They gain their fame and whatever, many other things that way. So that's required for them. But writing as an introspective activity, what is the need for that? Yes. So this journaling, it's interesting. We may think everybody is so busy. I have very little time. But if you look at some of the most successful people, be they People, political leaders like Martin Luther King, or scientists like Albert Einstein, or Nobel laureate authors like Isaac Bashevis Singer and others. People from a wide spectrum of fields invested a significant amount of their daily time writing down thoughts or writing down things that they didn't share with the world. So writing down things to do, we share with others. Writing down thoughts, we share for publishing. But there are many thoughtful, many leaders in the world who spend time writing down their thoughts, not for the world's sake, but for their own sake. So, no, I have not yet shared the screen till now. I'll start sharing the screen. Till now, I've been speaking without the screen. Okay. So let's try to understand why somebody would do like that. So to understand this, let's now when we understood this point of journaling for inner, journaling is introspective writing. Now we may wonder, why is introspective writing needed? What does it serve? So before we go into the purposes, I'll try to explain what writing itself does. And with that understanding, we will see what all purposes it can serve. So essentially for us, when we write things down, by writing, something very powerful happens. We get words for our thoughts, and we develop our thoughts with our words. I'll explain here a little bit more clearly. Are you able to see my screen now? Not yet. Okay, this is strange. Okay, not this one. Okay. So what writing does is, writing places words on our thoughts, emotions, and ideas. And then writing, here I'm talking about writing as journaling. Writing develops those thoughts, emotions, and ideas as we try to find the right words for them. That means here the difference between this is expressing and this is developing. Or you could say even discovering. So sometimes we have an idea and you just need to put it in words. Sometimes we have an emotion and we need to put it in words. So that's expressing. And on the other hand, when we try to put it in words, and if this is not the right word, okay, well, so we are upset. Now, upset is a very broad word. So we have a friend with whom we are talking, and then he says, "Are you angry?" He says, "No, I'm not angry." Okay. Are you depressed? No, I'm not depressed. And okay, then what are you feeling? I'm annoyed. So what is happening over here is, when we discuss with someone else, they may try to put words on our emotions, and we may not ourselves consciously think about what the emotion I'm feeling is. But when somebody else places a word on it, we say, hey, that's not what I'm feeling. That's not what I'm feeling. And then we may try to articulate, and we may try to find an emotion, a more appropriate way of expressing that. So expressing and discovering go together. So another way to understand this is that if we have a hidden treasure in our backyard, we dig to find the treasure. But the amazing thing is, as we keep digging, it is not only we find the treasure. Say if somebody finds some jewel or gold, The more it is refined, the better it becomes, the more valuable it becomes. So it's both ways. It's we are finding out what is there, and we are also developing what is there. Now, again, journaling is different from keeping a diary. Mhm. I'll explain what is the difference if you consider journaling versus diary keeping. Mhm. Now, when people keep a diary, it is mostly events. Okay, I did this in the morning. It's diary is more about events. Mhm. I went here, I met this person, uh, I talked with this person, or I did this. It's mostly events and activities. But that is diary. But journal is what? It is the emotional and personal significance of those events and activities. It's not just a record. It's okay, I did this, I woke up at this time, I did this, I did that. That itself may be valuable. But when we are journaling, we are trying to go deeper. So we may not keep a record of all the events or all the activities. We may choose those which are significant for us. And what could be the significant aspect? What could be of significance? That can vary from person to person, from situation to situation. And I'll talk about a few significant things which journaling can help us to do. But so it's not simply keeping a record of events. Mhm. It's a record of, okay, when this particular thing happened, when this person spoke to me like this, how did it make me feel? Or what was I thinking about? I was apprehensive, I was tense, I was excited. Why was I excited? So what happens is this, when we do this, it increases, it leads to greater self-understanding. What are the things that make me nervous? What are the things that excite me? What are the things what are the kind of situations I can handle well? So we learn about ourselves. So, so another way of understanding journaling is, if we want to consider it, it's like news versus news analysis. So diary keeping is like keeping news. It is news not so much of the outer world, but a news of the inner world. Okay, it's just what I did. Okay, I did this. It's more of not so much our personal life, not just of the whole world around us. So diary keeping is like reporting the news. This happened here, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here. That has its utility. But if you want to gain a deeper understanding of what is happening in the world, just reading a lot of news is not very helpful. We want some analysis of the news. Okay, what's going on over here? So journaling is like analyzing the news of our life. Okay, what happened and what does it mean for me? What can I learn from it? How can I grow through this? How can I face similar situations in future? So let's try to look at one sample to illustrate what I mean by the significance of those events. So one common journal that is very easy to keep and also very helpful to keep is what can be called as a gratitude journal. So if what would a gratitude journal mean, considering the difference between say diary and journal? Gratitude journal could be, if we decide to keep a daily gratitude journal, so list 3 events when I felt grateful. And then it's not just elaborate why I felt grateful at those times. So this is at the level of diary only. But this is where it will become a journal. Here, when we do the second thing, okay, when I met this, when I went home after many months, I was staying away and I was all with my family and friends. I felt that so many people care for me. No, I felt grateful. I realized I'm not that lonely. That could be one way I feel grateful. Maybe I went to a hospital to meet a friend who is very sick. And I felt grateful that my health is good. I felt grateful that my health challenges are nothing serious. Or I went to a temple and I felt so peaceful. I felt so sublime. I felt so spiritual. Other times I feel so stressed or nervous or distracted. I felt grateful that there is this spiritual side to my life where I can reconnect with myself, where I have a source from which I can get calmness and strength and clarity. I'm grateful for that. So these are examples of a gratitude journal where we are not just writing down the times when I felt grateful, but why I felt grateful. Now, if you want to take this, take this further, you could go to the opposite side also. List 3 events when I felt dissatisfied. So the opposite of gratitude could be dissatisfaction. Gratitude basically means we look at what is right in our life. What is right, what is good, what is wonderful in our life. And in contrast, we can have what is not good in our life, what is bad in our life, what is wrong in our life. And then there also we could have elaborate why I felt dissatisfied. So what happens by the second part is, okay, I went to meet my friend and he's staying in such a big house. He's risen in the corporate ladder so much. And I felt very dissatisfied. Okay, we could say, is this envy? Well, it could be envy, but there's a simple label you're putting on it. Why exactly did I feel dissatisfied? Maybe there are other friends of mine who have done better, but I don't feel so much. Why? Because, we were peers earlier. We were equals. I feel, did I do something? Did I do something wrong in my life? Did I make some wrong choices? Is that why I felt dissatisfied? So it could be that I thought that I was more talented than him. Why is he more successful? Maybe I had not. Have I chosen wrong field? Did I not work hard enough? What went wrong? So just letting ourselves feel dissatisfied. That doesn't mean, I have to immediately start earning like that person. Okay, what can I do? We don't want the dissatisfaction to control us. We want that dissatisfaction to be channeled. So this is an example of a gratitude journal. A simple way where we go deeper into ourselves and gain self-understanding. Self-understanding is what will help us to move forward. So I said earlier that journaling is introspective writing. Journaling is introspective writing. So what is introspective here? Introspective means looking at ourselves. So now, why is introspective writing needed at all? Ultimately, we are the most fundamental resource we have for doing anything in life. We may want to take care of our family. We may want to do something for society. We may want financial security. We may even want to grow spiritually. But for all this, we need ourselves. So we are the most fundamental resource. Suppose you have a computer and you need a computer for your work, and that's the only computer you have. And the computer is of a brand or a model which we are not so familiar with. Then what would we do? We want to understand what are the features of the computer. Example, indispensable and unfamiliar computer. If I have, what would we do? The first thing we would spend some time understanding the computer. Okay, what all can it do? What all can it not do? What can it do well? What all does it do poorly? So similarly, just as we would try to understand it, we will try to understand how it works. So we need to similarly understand how we can best work with ourselves. We are our only resource. We are our most fundamental resource. So how can we best work with ourselves? So journaling is the way we can gain better understanding of ourselves. So that is why journaling is very valuable. Now I will talk about the second part, that is, what can journaling do for us? Why do we need to journal? To some extent, I have explained it already. but I'll be elaborating it more specifically with 4 distinct functions. Are there any uh, comments or questions at this point before we move ahead? Okay, thank you. So let's move ahead now. I look at so I'll use an acronym FACE to explain what all a journal can do for us. So F is friendship. So the theme over here is that we periodically face ourselves in a mirror. When we are going out, we look at a mirror to see how do we look. Do we need to adjust our looks a little bit so that we are not looking shabby or uncouth when we are going out. So, okay, Gaurav was asking that, has asked that, is diary keeping a prerequisite activity before journaling? Not at all. Sometimes if we have limited time, if we try to focus on keeping a diary, that may itself take a lot of time. So journaling can be focused. We may not have the time to keep a diary, but we may decide, okay, there's one particular thing which I want to improve in my life. Say, for example, I want to just cultivate a greater gratitude. So then we just focus on the events connected with gratitude and we journal about that. So journaling can be for many different purposes. And we note the events and the significance of those events associated with that particular activity itself. So a journal can act as a friend for us. It can also provide us assistance. So friendship, I'll explain what this means. It's just unburdening our heart. And assistance means organizing our thoughts. I'll elaborate each of these as we move forward. And C is creativity. Getting new ideas and insights. And then E is epiphany. Now, epiphany is a spirit. Epiphany sometimes is used similar as inspiration, but the way I'm using epiphany is in terms of growing spiritually through realizations. So epiphany literally means inspiration or realization or a sudden arising of insight. Let's put over here. We can ideas and perspectives. I'll explain this. So when we face ourselves, just like if we face ourselves in a mirror, what happens is, okay, okay, I need to maybe get this dress ironed, or I need to comb myself, whatever. We need to fix our appearance. So similarly, when we face ourselves, journaling is a time when we take a look at ourselves. And what is the purpose of taking a look at ourselves? For improving ourselves. And that improvement can happen through various ways. So in future sessions which we'll be having in journaling, we will be discussing further about how each of these things can be done more detail, but I'll explain this briefly right now. So let's start with the first part, friendship. What do I mean by friendship over here? Basically, journaling can be a space, it can be our private space where we can express our thoughts without any fear of being judged or criticized. So for example, we all, when we function in the world, when we speak in the world, we often have to guard our words. We may, if we are in office, we are in a high stakes discussion, one wrong word, others may exploit it, or it may create a great mess of situation. So often we have to guard our words. And that's a part of this cultured and responsible human behavior. At the same time, we also need some space where we can just be ourselves. It's just like if somebody's in the army, now a soldier can't always be in attention. Now there are times when the soldier has to be in attention, okay, and if they're in the battlefield, constantly be alert. Where's the danger coming from? But that is not the posture physically and emotionally that the soldier can always be. Yes, other times also one needs to be alert, but not that level of alertness. There's a time when, okay, I'm in the safe zone, now let me relax. So just as there's physical relaxation, similarly, there is inner relaxation. We need a space where we don't have to guard our thoughts, our words, our emotions. This is what I'm feeling. Now, if we have a friend, there are certain thoughts which are burdening us, but we feel hesitate to share that with anyone because they are very private, they may be controversial, somebody may consider them objectionable or even offensive. So we just need someone to talk with. And sometimes if we have a friend like that, it's fortunate. But sometimes we may not have a friend like that. So if we don't have a friend, or even if we have a friend and the friend is not available to us, so what do we do? At that time, we can turn to a journal. So many times, because our society is becoming lonely, just to have someone with whom to unwind, to unburden. Often people go to psychotherapy not because they are so mentally disturbed. Psychotherapy is a way to unburden oneself. So people go because they're so lonely. Just, I want somebody who will hear me. But journaling is a lot cheaper than psychotherapy. You don't need to pay anybody. We don't need to go somewhere else. Our journal itself can be a place where we just express our thoughts. Sometimes if we have a close friend and we just talk with that person. Now they may not give us any special advice. They may not offer any solutions to our problems, but just getting the burden of our heart, that can be a big relief. So journaling is our private space. In fact, some, like earlier said, that why would somebody write if it's not going to serve a functional purpose or some communication purpose to others? No, this is where actually, so instead of thinking that as a waste of time, this can be an opportunity. I don't have to censor myself. I don't have to check myself. Whatever is inside, just let it come outside. And we'll find a big relief coming out of it. Sometimes this kind of letting the journal be our friend who just hears us. Whenever we are in trouble, we just turn to our journal. You can even, we can even, when we are in this friendship mode, we can personify our journal. Personify our journal means use a name for our journal. Maybe we had a childhood friend, use a name and address the journal in that name. And we can even, I'll talk later in terms of epiphany. If we are more devotionally minded, we can use our journal to even pray and address the divine by whatever name we are familiar with and using for the divine. That's also an aspect. But personify our journal. So what happens by this is, we can say, my dear friend, I'm feeling very frustrated today. I am elated today because this thing which I was striving for such a long time, it happened. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. So whatever it is, just share our heart. So journal can be a very powerful friend, and it can be a powerful mitigator of loneliness. Now, of course, journal is not a substitute for actual friends. We do need friends. We need somebody outside our head with whom we can talk. But when they are not available, a journal can be a valuable substitute. And not only that, what can also happen is, through a journal, when we unburden ourselves, then later on when we have friends whom we can access, at that time with those friends we can spend our time more effectively. And that brings me to the next point. So discussing the theme of how a journal can be like a mirror which can help us to face ourselves. Oh, there is this burden on my heart, I was able to remove this burden, just let me write things down. Now after that, so the acronym which you're using is FACE, FACE. So the second part is assistance. So assistance in organizing our thoughts. This is where the second step we can do if it is required. So we could say that we could journal in two phases of journaling. The first phase is simply venting out. So here there is no censoring or worrying about propriety. Just filter it out. So sometimes we may have something like a brainstorming session. So for a brainstorming session in a company where something creative is to be done, what is the important thing is that no ideas are considered bad ideas. No ideas are dismissed. Let all ideas come out. And in the brainstorming phase, the purpose is just get the ideas out. They will be evaluated later. So this first phase is venting out. And then second is processing. Processing means using our intelligence to analyze our mind. So this is where the Bhagavad Gita explains that inside us there are two faculties. There is our mind, which tends to be emotional, which tends to be impulsive, and that quite often drags us in various unhealthy directions. So ideally speaking, what should happen is that we acknowledge our mind, but we don't let ourselves be controlled by our mind. If our mind starts controlling us, then we won't be able to function that effectively. We'll find that over a period of time, we will end up becoming disorganized in what we are doing. That's why we need to be able to look at our lives initially without any judgment, but then eventually it's important. Okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I can do better. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a model of the self that is given. And I'll talk about this model and how this is the third part I'm discussing. But this third part we'll combine with the second part now. So first is just give yourself a vent. Now, after we have given a vent to ourselves, what do we do after that? We then start analyzing. One of the key insights that we get when we start journaling is that we start understanding that there are multiple voices inside us. That there's one part which says, oh, I want to do this. Another part says, I want to do that. So what are all these multiple voices inside us? The Bhagavad Gita explains. So this is based on 3.42 in the Gita. So Krishna says, Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. So he says there is the outer world. The outer world is at the bottom. Here we are putting them in a hierarchy. So right now you are sitting in a particular room. The outer world is, there may be a wall, there may be a door, there might be a window, there may be some various furniture. That's the outer world. Now the outer world comes to us through perception. That perception happens through the senses. Now, the senses are the eyes, the ears, the nose, from which we get an input from the outer world. And of course, we act in the outer world also. We use our hands to lift things. We walk with our legs. So, like that. Now, the senses are, in one sense, simply information carriers. But then, when from the senses, when the information comes in, it goes into our mind. The mind is the place of emotions within us. It is the place of desire. It is the place of emotions. It is the place of grievances. It is the place of our hang-ups. It is the place of our insecurities. That's the place where much of the negativity that is inside us resides. The mind is often impulsive. It is short-sighted. As soon as I see something to eat, the senses show this object to it. The mind says, okay, let's go. The hand goes out and picks it up and stuffs it in the mouth. We don't even think much about it. So that's the mind. It's impulsive. However, there is a deeper level to our being, and that is our intelligence. So as contrasted the mind to the mind, which is impulsive, the intelligence is reflective. The intelligence thinks. Like the mind is, in terms of contemporary slogans, you could say the mind is just do it. The intelligence is look before you leap. Think before you act. Don't just do it. Think. So the intelligence is at a deeper level within us. And intelligence is a rational faculty, a reflective faculty. And beyond the intelligence is the essence of who we are, the soul. The soul is the locus of our identity. The soul is the source of our consciousness. The soul is ultimately the foundation of our value system. Ultimately, what we value the most is centered around the soul. So it goes beyond the emotional and the rational to the essential core of our being. Now, what the soul is a philosophical concept which I'll not go into right now. But the point is, when we are journaling, what are we trying to do? We are trying to get a better understanding of our inner world. What is going on? Broadly speaking, we can say that we behave in two distinct ways. Sometimes we are wise and sometimes we are otherwise. Especially when we are giving advice to others, we may surprise ourselves how wise I am. Oh, what brilliant advice I give. So we are very wise, especially when giving advice to others. But when faced with provocations, when faced with temptations, what happens is we do things after we wonder, why did I do that? Why did I speak like that? Nowadays, shopping is become so easy. Not only are the supermarkets where hundreds of items available, now everything is available online. We could just click a few buttons and we can buy whatever we want. So some people become like they're alcoholics, they become shopaholics. They become addicted to shopping. And then they buy 100 things and after that somebody asks, why did you buy that exactly? I don't know. So what happens is, we are ourselves not able to figure out why we did what we did. That is a waste of money. Why did I buy it? I'm hardly ever going to use it. So that is the otherwise or the unwise self. So we could analyze this part into the inner territory that is there within us. The soul and the intelligence is the wise self. And the mind and the senses, they are often the otherwise self. The otherwise can be unwise, the otherwise can be foolish, whatever it is. So what happens is, the Bhagavad Gita, so this is a different verse from the Gita. The model itself was based on 342, but how to use that model, how to act based on that model is mentioned in 6.5. So here Krishna says, Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Krishna says, you can be your own friend and you can be your own enemy. Learn to elevate yourself with yourself. Don't degrade yourself with yourself. What he means by this is, that if in now this whole thing is inside us, the soul, intelligence, mind, senses, they are all inside us. Our senses are, of course, at the surface of who we are. The eyes are at the interface. But if from our inner world only this otherwise self is acting, that means the mind and senses are acting, then we'll be impulsive. We may even be self-destructive. We may overeat, oversleep, we may overrage. Small thing, we get very angry. We overwork. The things which are not important, we spend a lot of time on them, and then we disrupt other aspects of our life. So we will be unwise. So that's how we may degrade ourselves. On the other hand, if in our inner world, it is the soul and the intelligence that are active, the soul and it is the soul and the intelligence that are acting, then what will happen is we will act wisely. We will elevate ourselves. So journaling can be a tool by which we can analyze who is speaking from inside us. Is it the otherwise self? Is it just mind and its impulses speaking? Or is this the intelligence speaking? Or we can actually let both speak. You let both of them speak and let both of them have their time to speak. That means that it's not that one is right and the other is wrong. The intelligence may also, the mind may also need some time to speak. So basically what journaling can do for us, when you talk about assistance is that it brings about a dialogue between the mind and the intelligence. So I talk about is FACE. That's what we are discussing over here. That assistance in organizing our thoughts. So what does organizing our thoughts means? That let the mind speak and let the intelligence counsel. So something bad happens to us, and the mind may say, oh, I think my destiny is itself rotten. Meri kismati futi hai. My destiny is rotten. Nothing ever works for me. My life is doomed. I'll never amount to anything worthwhile. Maybe God is also against me. God doesn't care for me, or God wants me to fail. What is the use of trying? So that might be the mind speaking. And then the intelligence can counsel. Yeah, what happened right now is bad. But is it that always bad things have happened in your life? Now you think of that time when you were in trouble and this person unexpectedly came and helped you. You did this and you got that lucky break, and this happened and that happened. If we can simply put this, if we are just alive, there's more right than wrong in our life. Why? Because whatever be our age, there are so many people who die before they come to our age. There are countries in Africa where the average lifespan is about 30, less than 30. So many of us, all of us may be of different ages, but many of us may be more than 30. So the very fact that we are alive means there is more right than wrong. Another way to look at that, if we are alive, God is not done with us. He still has a plan and purpose for us. That's why we are alive. So let's not lose hope. So this is when the mind starts becoming discouraged, we don't simply suppress the mind. Okay, let the mind express itself, but then pacify the mind. Let the intelligence speak. So it's like an inner dialogue going on. Let the mind speak out, and then, oh yeah, this is a valid point. This is I'm exaggerating this over there. This I don't know enough information. Say we are very angry with someone, and we just vent out our anger. Now, if we vent out our anger, usually what happens is that person also becomes angry, and anger simply makes things worse. So what happens is if we express our anger, we make things worse. But if we repress our anger, it burns inside us. But instead, what we can do is this assistance journaling can help us to process our anger. So if we consider anger management, okay, I'm feeling angry right now. How can journaling help me to deal with anger? So don't just express or repress. What we can do is process. Process means, okay, These are the reasons I feel angry. Then let's list all the reasons. Just let that be a uncensored space for listing out. That's the first thing. What we discussed in journaling. Just give yourself a space where a friend hears us without judging. But after that, let the intelligence evaluate it. Okay, yeah, this point is valid. This point, maybe I'm generalizing. This point, maybe this person did it. I'm thinking they did it because they want to hurt me. But maybe yes, they didn't know about what was going on. Were they really against me? Let me find out more information. So what will happen is that we will, when we learn to process things like that, we will get an inner sense of clarity and confidence. Okay, this is what happened. This is what I know. Clarity doesn't necessarily mean that everything becomes clear. We may even become clear. Okay, this is what I understand. This is what I don't understand. In this situation, I made this mistake. This person made this mistake. But why did all these other things happen? Let me find out. Okay, I can deal with this situation. So this is how journaling can help us face ourselves. It can be an assistance in organizing our thoughts. Then let's go back to the acronym which I mentioned over here. So we look at the creativity now. So getting new ideas and perspectives. Journaling can be a very powerful tool in that. Now, what do I mean by creativity? Some of us may directly be in creative professions. Some of us may be in marketing, some of us may be in advertising, some of us may be doing some field, some artistic works which creativity requires. That's wonderful. And journaling can be a powerful aid in that. But along with that, creativity can be a valuable tool for every single person. Every single one of us, in the many things that we do in our lives, if we are more creative, we can get more taste in doing those things. We can do the things more effectively. We can do things more joyfully. So creativity is it's like a hidden asset that everyone has, though not to the same degree. Yes, some people definitely have much more creativity than others, but we all have creativity. Okay, I'm facing this problem. How do I deal with this problem? Even if we consider a field which is very, very organized and we could say clinical, like surgery. So a doctor has to do a surgery. This is the protocol. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But every case is distinct. Sometimes the patient may have multiple complications. Okay, then how do we do this surgery? At that time, doctor has to be creative. We don't have this device working today. How can we go ahead with it? So instead of thinking creativity, it's not just solely artistic. It is essentially coming up with new ways of looking at things and dealing with things. So creativity can help us in any way, in every area of life. We may be stuck in a particular situation, in a relationship, in a profession, in our health. Or is there a fresh way of looking at it? That's where creativity comes in. We all get some good thoughts. We all get some good ideas. So journaling is a place where we develop those ideas. We note those ideas and develop those ideas. It could be, suppose we want to, we face some situation, and sometimes we feel very inspired to deal with the situation. And sometimes we feel very depressed. We feel completely de-energized. We have these mood swings. So the times when we felt inspired to deal with that situation, if we note it down, oh, this is what I did. This is how I was feeling. This is what I was thinking. Then what happens is, then that we note it down. Next time when we are facing that situation, we can have more creative ideas to deal with the situation. So creativity, it says a whole new field. Not everybody thinks about creativity today, but if you consider in the contemporary world, the word innovation is big. Are there newer, better cheaper, faster, smarter ways of doing things. So journaling is a tool by which, when we understand ourselves, at that time, not only can we use that self understanding for better dealing with our emotions, but for better implementing our ideas also. So how could we use journaling for creativity? We could just have something like a idea scrapbook, scrap page or a scrapbook. That means these are just the ideas I have. No, note down any good ideas we get. Now, we may not be able to implement those ideas immediately. It doesn't matter. Just note down those ideas. So if we are journaling, now we could have journaling as we can do journaling with a physical book. We can journaling digitally also, on our phone or on our computers, whatever it is. So we could have a scrap. Means it need not be valuable. It's like when we are digging for gold. Initially, we may not get gold. We get a lot of dirt. But who knows? Within that dirt, some gold might be there. So any good ideas we get, just note them down. And then maybe once a week, look back at those ideas and see which ideas are worth developing. Initially, when an idea comes, we feel, oh, this is a great idea. This can be a life-changing idea. But that's just the creative juices flowing. That time we may not be that objective in our perspective. But later on, when we look back at, yeah, this idea still sounds great. Let me try exploring it. So this is like an idea scrap page we can have. And in this way, we can develop our creativity through journaling. And then I come to the last part, that is epiphany. Epiphany means it is gaining spiritual insights. So it is basically gaining spiritual insights and realizations. So journaling can be a very powerful tool for self-transformation. If we have some unhealthy habit we want to give up, if we have some healthy habit that we want to develop, then in both these cases, journaling can help us. What can it do? Actually, through journaling, we can keep a track of what we are doing, how we are moving forward. And if we are able to do something well, how were we able to do it well? If that's something we're not able to do well, why were we not able to do well? So we can guide ourselves towards self-transformation through journaling. So journaling can be done through various things. Suppose we want to develop a regular reading habit. So there are so many wisdom texts available which we want to read and learn, but somehow we may not be able to read regularly, or we may be reading regularly, but we feel I'm not getting enough insight from it. I just feel that I'm reading and I'm forgetting, I'm not learning much. So journaling can be a tool by which we can make that particular habit regular and effective, both. So how can this happen? Epiphany can also be referred to. We can journaling can be a place where we pray, and when certain prayers may be answered through practical problems being solved, certain prayers may be answered simply in terms of the relief that we get, the clarity that we get. Epiphany can also mean that, suppose we have read something sometime. So this is one section of journaling which we'll discuss about about how we can study wisdom texts better through journaling. So for example, suppose we don't feel that, oh, I don't want to do all this introspection, trying to understand my emotions, develop my ideas. It's all inside. There's so much stuff. Who knows what is good, what is bad? I don't want to spend my time in this. So then what we could do with respect to journaling is that suppose we read some wisdom text. If we read Bhagavad Gita regularly. So if we are going to read for 30 minutes, instead of reading 30 minutes, what you could do is, instead of that, read 25 minutes and write 5 minutes about what you found striking in what you read? Just knowing that we have to write 5 minutes, we'll find that that will itself change how we look at the content, or how we will read it more carefully. We'll find, oh, this point is so good, this point is so good. And then as we start writing down, we'll find that our thoughts will become more organized, our thoughts will become clearer, our expression will become more effective. And in that way, we will gain a lot more for our writing. So this is a way in which we can we can start living scripture. Scripture can become a living book for us. Um, so when we do reflecting on wisdom text, what we do is we use our journal. Okay, I read for we use a journal for writing our thoughts, writing those what we have read, what struck us from what we read in our own words. And this can make that wisdom our own. So it's like it's gaining ownership of the wisdom. Now, ownership doesn't mean possession or controllership. Ownership simply means it refers to a close personal connection with the wisdom. Yeah, this is something which I know. This is not just something which, like a parrot, I have read and I'm repeating. It's something which I know, I have understood, I have applied it, and I have benefited from it. And in this way, by our journaling, we can get epiphanies, we can get realizations, we can get wisdom. So these are various ways in which, through journaling, what will happen is, it's the concluding slide, that journaling, what is it about? It is using our interactions with words. So interactions with words means writing involves words centrally. Writing, using our interaction with words to grow in wisdom. So one way I put it, write it to write it. So write it to write it. What does that mean? Write it means, the first write it is write whatever is going on in our inner world. And when we write what is going on in our inner world, what happens by that is write it. Write it means that we learn to fix whatever is wrong in our inner world. So we can say the essence of journaling is write it to write it. And we'll find that there are so many things we can improve about ourselves, and we can become better human beings. We can fulfill our God-given potential and be all that we are meant to be, for maximizing our contribution in the world, and for optimizing our ultimate destiny and destination in this world and beyond. I'll summarize what I discussed today, and then we can have a few questions, reflections. If there are no questions, then we'll have a short journaling reflection that we will do, journaling exercise that we can do to conclude this. So today I discussed broadly 3 parts. The first part was why journal. The first part was what is journaling. So in that I discussed that there is writing for practical functional purposes and writing for artistic creative purposes. And in between, there is writing for introspective purposes. So journaling is writing for introspection. Journaling is different from diary writing, just as news analysis is different from news. So we don't just write the events that happened in our life or the activities that we did, but rather we write about their emotional and personal significance. Just like if we are doing a gratitude journal, we focus um, we focus primarily on not just when I what I felt grateful about, but why I felt grateful about it. So the why is what will lead to greater self understanding for ourselves. Why do we need greater self understanding? Because we are our most fundamental resource. The better we understand ourselves, the better we can use whatever gifts we have, and be more optimum. We can grow more effectively. Then I discussed about how what are the benefits of journaling. I talked about the acronym FACE. Just like we face ourselves in a mirror so that we can look our best. So similarly, journaling can help us face ourselves so that not just we can look our best, but we can become our best. So F was friendship. A journal can be just our private space where we can unburden our heart of whatever thoughts, fears, insecurities, desires, whatever might be there inside. We can unburden it. It can be like a friend. It is an uncensored space where it's just for ourselves. And in this way, it can be actually much cheaper than psychotherapy, and it can be just as if not more effective. Then A was assistance. So assistance is in organizing our thoughts. So here I talk about the first stage is just vent ourselves. Whatever, if I'm feeling angry, just let me vent out my anger. But after that, let me process it. Okay, this is valid. This needs more information. This I'm overreacting over here. So basically, then I talk about the model of the inner world, where there is the wise self, that is the intelligence coupled with the soul, and there is the otherwise, the unwise self, that is the senses and the mind. So if we let ourselves, our inner world, be controlled by our mind and senses, then we will live at the surface. We will live very impulsively. We may even live destructively. So to go deeper, journaling can help us. So the mind has its say, but then the intelligence analyzes that. We may let the intelligence become the counselor of our mind. Then that was assistantship. Then C was creativity, FACE. That means we can, whenever we get any good idea, just make a log of it. And then later on, take some time out to revisit those ideas, and whichever can be developed, we develop this. This is not just so that we can come up with some new art or some new literary form, but it can also be, we can get new ways of looking at our life situations and new ways of dealing with those situations. Creativity is a resource that we all can use to become more effective in our lives. And the last E was epiphany. Epiphany means that we can gain spiritual insights through our journaling. So one way to do that is when we read wisdom texts, instead of just spending time reading it all, just spend some time uh, writing. So instead of reading 30 minutes, read 25 minutes and write down what struck us the most for 5 minutes. And that act of writing down will not only increase our attentiveness in our reading, but it also improve our articulation. Okay, this is the point I found striking. Why? And we elaborate on it. We will remember that point. We'll be able to express that point, share with others, and that way we will actually gain more wisdom through the wisdom texts. So ultimately, journaling is what? It is write it to write it. Write what is going on in our inner world so that we can set whatever is wrong over there right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So I can see there are a few questions. The Divya Gaurangi Mataji has asked that so that how can we write in brief in fewer words? Journals are too long. Well, the length itself is not necessarily a problem, but what we could do is two things. Like I first talked as a friendship. So when we are with friends, it's not that we are constantly looking at our watch, how much time I spend with this friend. But that doesn't mean that we never consider how much time we are spending. So we want to be time conscious, but we don't want to be only time conscious. That's the meaning of friendship. A friend is there for us, and we are there for a friend when we need it. But just because the friend is there for doesn't mean when we take their time for granted. So what we could do is that we just look back at our, if our past journals are too long, then look back at those journals, maybe spend some time, read them and see which parts are relevant now. Maybe this is the part which I needed to focus on more. This part really doesn't make much of a difference to me. So by looking back at our journals, we can learn what to elaborate more on, what to not elaborate so much on, and in that way we can decide how best to keep our journals brief. So rather than worrying about how I can keep it brief, see how my journal can fulfill the purpose for which I'm journaling. And then based on that, whatever is not fulfilling the purpose, we can avoid that. Another way of keeping it brief is just decide a certain amount of time, that okay, I'm going to journal for 10 minutes every day, 20 minutes every day, whatever time we want to decide. And if you feel more inspired to journal, okay, I'll do that. Maybe I'll just note 1 or 2 points and I'll elaborate them tomorrow. So that way, what if our journals have become too long, then right now I feel I just have to write this. But if I defer it to tomorrow, I may realize maybe this is not such an important thing. Why do I need to write about it? Mm. So that's the way you can keep the journals brief. Then there's a question by Priyarani Mataji that writing letters to the Lord or previous acharyas, is that also journaling? Yes, certainly. The idea, the essence of journaling is writing for introspective purposes. So if now we have gained some wisdom from the previous acharyas, or they are the Lord, or their virtues inspire us, they are the objects of devotion for us. So when we reflect on them, what is happening is, when we write to them, then we are growing in self-understanding through that. So journaling is that can also be a very important form of journaling. Now, what is important over here is that it shouldn't just be like a pro forma kind of thing. Every day, this is the form, and this is the form I have to follow, and that's all it is. If we have a very reverential conception of that particular previous acharya or the Lord, then is that stopping us from being candid? It should not stop us that way. That means, we need to be able to express ourselves fully. So if it's just like this is the format and I cannot speak about this issue, I know I have these kind of thoughts and that's a terrible thoughts. How can I speak about this to the Lord or the acharyas? Oh, they're so pure and I'm so impure. If that kind of inhibition is coming, then that may not be helpful in our journaling. So yeah, I may be impure, but they know that I am impure and still they're not rejecting me. They're there with me. So let me share my heart with them. So Gaurav is asking is that if we are not mature enough to find out what is wrong in our inner world, then can we show our journal to our mentor? Yes, certainly. If the mentor is interested in that, mentor is interested enough in us and interested enough in uh, our journal, then why not? I mean, sometimes we can even talk with them about what we should journal, and then they can help us to make it more focused also. Mm. So how is journaling different from article writing? Can a journal turn into an article? Yes, certainly. The second is true, that from our journal, we can get many ideas that can eventually become articles. In fact, I write every day on the Bhagavad Gita at geetadaily.com. And till now, I've written over almost 5,000 articles. I've been writing every day for more than 10 years now. So my Gita Daily writing started originally as a journal. I would hear some classes, read spiritual books, and then whatever would strike me, I would try to articulate it in my own words for my own inspiration, for my own reflection. But then I started feeling that this I could share with others also. I started sharing with others more and more. It was sometimes in classes, sometimes through brief quotes, and then I started writing articles. So journal entries can definitely grow into articles, but the difference is in purpose. When we are writing an article, it's clear that we are writing it for communicating with others. When we are journaling, we are writing primarily to communicate with ourselves. After communicating with ourselves, some things may come up which may help us which may help us write something for others also, communicate with others also better. That's fine. But if we are thinking while journaling, oh, what article idea I'll get from this, then we are missing the point of journaling. It is like there is chanting and there is reading. Now, during reading, we may learn many new points which you can share with others. Now, sometimes during chanting also, we might just get some new thoughts, some new points, some new examples, some new understanding of things. But if we start evaluating our chanting by how many new thoughts I got today, well, that's not the parameter over there. Chanting is for connecting with Krishna in the form of the holy name. Reading is for learning more, learning new wisdom. So journaling is communicating with ourselves. If through that we get ideas for communicating with others, that's a fringe benefit. So I have been doing journaling in the past, Akshay Pani was asking, but not very structured or with clear awareness. I was not inspired to reflect on something I had written 1-2 months in the past. So, and it just tends to be a rolling track of jotting down my ideas, feelings, and introspective thoughts. In different phases, I end up tackling different problems, emotions, habits. So I don't feel any significant progress has been made. How can I make my journal more effective? Yes, that's why I said that you could start if this is what we feel that, oh, writing about my own issues, it's not very productive. Then write about what we are reading. Start with that. So, okay, I read this and this is what I reflected on and I got a deeper understanding of it. So reflecting on what we are reading through writing is very powerful way. We will remember that. If nothing else, we'll remember those points more, which we wrote about. We will also be able to understand them better, express them better, and we will feel tangible benefits. We'll be having a session on, we'll be having a multi-session course soon. And within that, we'll be having a session on journaling to study scriptures better. So that is one way we can make journaling more effective. Another is that make the journaling more focused. It doesn't have to be always structured, but it can be focused. Structured means first I'll write point A, point B, point C, point D. Well, it doesn't have to be necessarily structured in that sense. But you can say, I am going to write about this broad subject. At least that level of focus is not only desirable, but sometimes it may be essential. So, okay, I'm going to write about how to deal with how to deal with. Next 1 month, I'm going to journal about how to deal with anger better. And then write on that. And don't just write about what happened in our life. Write also about some points we may have heard in the classes or read in books about how to deal with anger and elaborate on them. So then that way, what will happen is we will feel that we are gaining understanding, because sometimes self-transformation takes some time. But even if we get better tools for self-transformation, that itself can help us. Okay, this is what I need to do. It's like this war may take a long time to win, but at least I have this weapon. And with this weapon, I ensure that I won't get that wounded as I would otherwise. That itself is helpful. So, yes, recordings will be available for those who have missed out. If we can't share our desire to our mentor, what should we do? Well, we can share with a friend, or we can share in writing with the mentor. We have to find out why we are not able to share. And sometimes you can just pray. If we can't share with the mentor, write it down in the journal, pray to the Lord. And we are communicating. Ultimately, we are communicating with the source of the wisdom of our mentor also. Because sometimes the mentor may not be available, but Krishna is there in our hearts and Krishna hears everything. So I write gratitude journal daily. Is that enough? Well, there is no formula about how to journal. In the next session, we'll do is about, we can journal about events, we can journal about relationships, we can journal about particular projects or services we are doing, we can journal about habits that we want to develop. So it is which area we want to focus on. So suppose we want to, as I said, improve the quality of our reading, or we want to just better use our morning time. So we could just journal about that. Okay, what time did I wake up? How did I feel when I was after I woke up? And what could I have done to sleep earlier? How did I utilize my morning time today? So just write about that. So it depends on which area we want to work on, and then we can journal accordingly. So if we feel if we feel angry or bad about a situation, we don't have pen and paper at that time, then should we wait till we write down and process the scenario and not regret and not react at that time itself, so that we can avoid regret? And what is the way to not react on the spot and save the situation? Well, the key point is that we have an impulsive side within us, and that impulsive side sometimes takes control of us even before we become aware of it. That means somebody provokes us and we yell at that person, sometimes even use inappropriate language, and we don't even realize it. But so that particular point of explosion, that point of provocation and the resulting explosion, that may not be in our control immediately. So, but what we could do is, if we are journaling at other times, if then that will just increase our self-awareness. So it's like if you're going along a road and there's a bump, and as soon as our vehicle goes over the bump, we get jerked. Now what happens is, we can't remove that bump immediately. We don't have control on the road. But if we are prepared, okay, maybe I can avoid this road for today. Or if I'm going by this road, before I come to the bump, let me slow down. So like that, what happens is, even if we can't deal with the same, we can't remove the provocative situation, we can't remove the bump, but if we are forewarned, then we can be forearmed. So how exactly to be forearmed? The different situations, different times, different things can work. Sometimes it may be just we walk away from the situation. Sometimes we change the subject, we discuss something else. Sometimes we just endure. Okay, let it get over with. So tolerate, mitigate, emigrate. We'll be talking about this in dealing with problems. These are three broad ways. Tolerate means, okay, it's not that this permanently this provocation is going to be there. It'll end after some time. So just let me wait. Tam Sitiksha Bharata, Krishna says in 214. Emigrate is, okay, I don't have to be in this situation. Here I'm going to explore. Let me just walk away from here. That is also a valid way of dealing with situations. Krishna says that Kurmo Angani Sarvasha. There's no need to expose yourself to provocative situations. Just retreat from those situations. And then Krishna also says, so the third way is mitigate. That means that we change the subject. We don't let that particular provocation go on in our life. We regulate our environment so that that kind of provocation doesn't come up. So we set boundaries in our life, in our workspace, and that way we protect ourselves. So which option will work for us? Through our journaling done at other times, we will learn, and then we will be able to apply that. So does writing with a pen and paper work better, or is writing on a computer also helpful, or on a device? Well, there is journaling is a very personal activity, and because it is so personal, each one of us has to find out how it works for us as a person. So for some people, they find the idea of having a book where we journal and then feeling the pen move on the paper, that itself makes them feel I'm doing some journaling. And if that's what nourishes us, that's wonderful. Then that's what we should do. But is it that journaling that way is more effective for everyone? Certainly not. From a from accessibility perspective, if you can journal on a phone or a laptop, then those are the devices which may be more regularly accessible to us than a physical journal, like a book. Another problem would be that we might be a little apprehensive that the book might be read by someone else, and that privacy issues might come up. Of course, sometimes there are journals available with locks, but locks can be picked. So if password protected file where we can journal, that's one way we may have confidentiality. That's also one factor to consider. But here the important thing is try out various things, see what works for us, and just focus on doing that. Okay. So thank you very much for all your questions and your thoughtful participation. We'll inform you about future journaling courses that will be held. Thank you. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna.